We have a little intro video to kick this off, and then we'll kind of dive right into the panel. I'm so excited you're here. I hope this panel just digs into some really interesting topics on content creation. We have some amazing leaders here from Scanline, from Netflix, and from Important Looking Pirates. I can't say that without smiling. I love that, I love that name. We're going to see where this ends up going. I'm Doug Smith. I'll do my own intro first. I am a business development specialist at Amazon, but I have been in the creative industry one way or another for over 18 years. I love getting to sort of facilitate these kinds of discussions. It should be good. The first person I'd love to introduce is Jeff Shapiro. Jeff is from Netflix. He has a perspective at the studio level, looking across multiple kind of VFX and animation vendors. His goal is to enable them all upskill the ecosystem and see positive results from cloud technology, and not just on one project, but all projects on Netflix slates. So the next person that I am super excited to introduce is James Braid. Oh, actually, Jens is sitting there, so I'll do you first. Jens is from Important Looking Pirates. He is they have a VFX vendor with an important perspective of being able to work on Lost in Space and be able to kind of be about 200-person studio that punches very much above their weight class. And last is James Braid. He is at one of the largest VFX companies growing at Scanline. He's at Scanline, and James has a lot to care about with scale and being able to understand how do you have artists in 7 locations around the world be able to do what they do and do it well. So I can only give sort of the brief intro, but I would love for you all to kind of give a little bit more of your background of what your day-to-day is and sort of what the things you do and what you care about.
Cool. Thanks, Doug. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Jeff Shapiro. I head up the production strategy and resource planning group at Netflix. We're focused on basically everything below the line. So infrastructure, creative services, looking at the global supply chain, mapping the Netflix slate against that to see what our demand is, and then actioning capacity strategies. Those could be capacity strategies with visual effects vendors. It could be capacity strategies with fixed infrastructure on a global scale. We also support the resource operations group here at Netflix. So anything that we've insourced, whether that's through the acquisition of Scanline, or anything that we've built, which is the NetFX platform, that's under our remit. So we're really focused on helping figure out how we match the right creators to talent and have a lot of fun doing it. Cool. Pass it off to you, Jens.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Jens Lindgren. I'm a CG supervisor at Important Looking Pirates. We're a mid-sized visual effects house based in Stockholm, Sweden. And we recently opened up in London and Hamburg as well. So part of my job as CG supervisor is to get really into the like how do we solve these shots and how do we get them out on time and within budget and everything. So like really problem solving a whole show and stuff like that, and rendering. How do we get out the frames without burning up the render farm and all that stuff? It's one part of my job. Yeah. So over to you.
James Braid. There we go. Nice. Test. I'm James Braid. I'm the VP Technology at Scanline. So looking after systems, infrastructure, rendering, storage, networking. Yeah, lots of technology. And yeah, Scanline's 7 visual effects studio, 7 global locations, and recently acquired by Netflix. And some of the challenges we've faced have just been around scaling up. The company's doubled in size every year for the last 3 or 4 years, and keeping track of that on the technical side has certainly been a big challenge for us.
James, why don't we start there a little bit?
Sure.
Right. So doubling in size 3 or 4 years in a row, like that has probably its own pains and challenges that come with that.
Yeah, certainly. I think we're kind of fortunate in the way we've architected things. We have a centralized kind of pipeline model. So we've got a workforce distributed amongst 7 different geographic regions, but we rely on a central data center, central infrastructure where all of those regions connect into. So we haven't had to stand up, data centers, render farms, workstations in these 7 different geographic regions. And that's been very powerful architecture that's enabled us to, grow the way we have with, I guess, less pain than it would have been otherwise.
I'm curious, Jens, what does it look like for you all in terms of, I'm guessing that your growth has been in response to so much of an increase in content. But Jens, yours too, I'm sure your perspective is pretty similar.
Yeah, it's the same. We haven't grown as much as them, but we have grown a lot in the recent years. And when you grow, there is a bit of pain. Right now we're like we want to not grow as fast for a little while, so we can stabilize and maybe get rid of some of the pain. But yeah, it's been really fun and really, been a fun time. And also Scanline, our complete backend is also centralized. So now when we opened up in London and Hamburg, we're still having our data center in Stockholm, Sweden for everyone. So
now,
it's working.
Jeff,
really good.
You have a different view. I would say your perspective is probably similar of scale, growth, craziness. You were telling me earlier that you get to sort of see how studios try to kind of, I think, survive under the weight of content, at least in the growth that comes with it and managing sort of all of the crazy. Do you want to dive into a little bit more of that from your perspective?
For sure. It's no secret, right? OTT demand is off the charts, and I've never heard a director say, I have more money, more time, and I want things to look worse than they've ever been done before. So everyone's leaning heavy into using visual effects as a toolkit to elevate the story. And what we've got a very unique challenge at Netflix where we've got a wide range of content that we need to make around the world. Over 1,000, branded originals going through Netflix at any given point in time, which is 10x higher than our competitors. And so for us, we look at the visual effects industry in general as being fairly inelastic in the way it can grow. So we're looking with some of the metrics that my team's come up with is we see global demand outpacing supply by about 3x. And that creates a lot of pressure on these suppliers. We're working through it, but the Netflix consumes a quarter of the world's resource. We've got 15,000 artists working in an indirect way for Netflix content 24/7. And so that creates a lot of pressure. And I think one of the ways we can solve the blow-off valve is creating a network of partners like we have, and also figuring out ways for those partners to scale efficiently when they got to push a lot of work through. So we're big proponents of cloud. That's no secret. We're great customers to Amazon, and we're trying to figure out really unique paths to help alleviate that pressure, because it's not going to subside.
I feel like, and maybe you all can relate to this in different ways, there's that pressure of the constant demand of output on all the artists and all the people you support. But then there's sort of this pressure of, as we've all been talking about, we're all doing this in our bedrooms at this point, making shows, or sitting on Zoom or whatever. How do you manage that? And how do you balance caring about the artists, caring about the pressure of what they're doing, and that people are enjoying their day and what they do and having fun? It's for any of you to
I don't know if you want to tackle that one.
Or is that just a challenge that we all are looking at and saying, I don't know the answer to?
Yeah, so I mean, we're still figuring it out, trying to improve that environment to work from home and hybrid work, because we have a lot of people in office and a lot of people at home. So yeah, it's an ongoing. We make changes to like how we do meetings or how many meetings do we need and everything all the time. So it's. Yeah, we're just trying to find the perfect.
Is it hard to build a culture with what's happened over the last 2 years? Because you see these big companies come out and say, either we want you on or off in the office, but it's hard with like hiring and building your culture and brand. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, for us it hasn't been that hard. We don't have a like mandatory that you need to be in office. So everyone is doing what they want. We had like a sort of mandatory pirate week in the beginning of summer. And that was all team building and stuff, and it was not like the management of the company didn't do the schedule, so other pirates did events and stuff for other pirates, and we all signed up to like everything, and it was a really nice time. And yeah, also a tradition, and I mean, we have a lot of fun. We're based in Stockholm, and it's just surrounded by water and stuff. So we have pirates just diving in over the lunch, just diving in like the water around the office. And yeah, we try to have a lot of fun, and I think people that works from home also have a lot of fun, because we're trying to share the experience with them and stuff like that all the time.
So if you walk out here with one thing today, it is everybody needs to do Pirate Week, and that's good. Okay, so I did the math on what you said, James, and that you have grown and added offices. Like you have, about 6, am I getting right, about 600 people since COVID, or something, maybe even more, that you've added to your scale.
Significant number of people.
So I would imagine this is a little bit of a challenge for you too.
Yeah, we have certainly challenges with onboarding, but like Jens is saying, just trying to find ways to make it work. We get a lot of people coming back to our offices now for onboarding, for social events, things like that. But yeah, certainly haven't gone to a full-on, you must be in the office or you must be remote. It's about flexibility, right? And I think this is what people are enjoying now.
It's funny. I was over at the LA office. It must have been like 9 months ago, right before we acquired Scanline. And the screening room was turned into like a shipping center for like Teradicis and Wycombe tablets. There was hundreds of them that were just being drop shipped out everywhere, it's interesting to see like how everyone's evolved.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next is, like, how do you have the infrastructure to support this? Like, how do you have the infrastructure to have artists everywhere and to have the output be what it needs to be and to have, like, the last-minute scaling that you need to have? Like, I'm just curious if you could riff on that.
Yeah, I think, like, working from home was a little bit lucky because the pandemic made it really hard to buy like monitors and computers. The waiting time was like huge. So when people worked from home, they could use their their home monitor, so that people could still work. We could grow. We could hire more people because they could work from like their home equipment. So that was like I don't think we could have grown as much otherwise. It was kind of hard. But yeah, back to that Pirate Week when we flew everyone in. For all the people that had like dual monitors in the office, they had to speed it up and share one monitor that week with someone else because it was hard. We couldn't buy enough monitors. It was crazy.
Yeah, certainly supply chain over the last 2 years has been probably the single biggest challenge in scaling. And that's where the cloud has come in clutch. 6-month lead time on a workstation or a rent-a-farm machine, or turn it on in 5 minutes. We've certainly lent on that heavily, particularly on the render side during these stacked delivery periods. It's enabled us to scale, right? It's enabled us to get through the last years.
Yeah, I would say adding a ton of artists and finding a GPU for them has been, I know that's been a woe for everybody. I'm just curious too, like Studio in the cloud seems to be sort of a bigger and bigger part of that, of being able to kind of have assets in the cloud and then people can work from wherever, or vendors can pick up work far from where you even have an office. Like, do you all see that as sort of a growing thing? Like, I know you have an interesting story kind of along those lines. Like, do you see that as a growing sort of model for all of you in the future, or how do you see that as sort of accenting what you do?
The cloud or remote kind of studio concept, it's how Scanline's been operating for a decade, and it's how we're going to continue to operate. It works so well. Detaching yourself from a physical office or entity in a certain city and being able to spin up those new regions anytime you need them. It's how we have to operate.
Do you think, from an infrastructure side, I think we're way more advanced than on the software side. Hardware, I think we're there, right?
Yep.
What are some of the challenges you see with the software suppliers trying to catch up?
Licensing is the bane of we have the fantastic ability from AWS to spin up a machine, to spin up a workstation, and we've still got the software vendors lagging behind in flexibility. It's getting there. There's been improvements, but it's still not that elastic on-demand ability that we have with the infrastructure, right?
So when you say, you're meaning like, hey, if I need 50,000 cores, well, the biggest problem is not getting 50,000 vCPUs. It's getting enough licenses to be able to support that at a moment's notice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard just anecdotally, because we do a lot of firefighting, isn't the ability to access the actual compute, it's getting onboarded, and it's figuring out how you get the licensing structure worked out. Yeah. So it's been, figuring it out last minute's been a challenge. So I think the call to action we've had with a lot of the vendors is get on cloud early, get tested, because the moment you get a bunch of work dumped on you, you're not going to be ready for it. And figuring out the software piece has been a challenge. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, you keep that.
All right.
And forward. Does this work? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, and then I think that I have seen that from my experience. I've seen that sort of it's not something you do last minute. It's something that you prepare for. I think that we're starting to kind of go that route of, do tools sort of make a difference in artists' lives? Does it make a difference in content creation and the volume and the output? And do you see sort of like, if you have, we're on the cusp of a lot of things, right? We're on the cusp of starting to see like AI ML sort of add to what is an artist toolbox. We're starting to see sort of what, if the data is sort of housed in one place repeatedly for every show and it's on the cloud, analytics could be a thing. Like, what are some of the things that you excite, or like that excite you sort of in that area, or what's your perspective on what we should, what you see as the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, I'll just jump in, and I'd love to pass it to Jens, but starting with commodity-based tools that help remove a lot of the manual workflows, just roto, paint, those kind of things that you can start to sub out and level up entire workforces that have been built on those more objective-based tasks and have them do more creative work is going to be a game changer. Also, we've got proof is in the pudding here. I mean, Netflix is nominated for 3 of the 5 Emmys this year for visual effects, and we've got ILP here that is a fairly small company that when they figured out how to get into cloud and work through it, we're able to get more iterations out. So building that access or that door into the cloud so you can burst from a compute perspective, trying to put pipelines together so you can run when files get sent to you, you can automatically run algos to help with some of that more rudimentary objective-based work is going to be critical, because what you want to do with your workforce is from a business perspective, you're going to want to maximize your revenue, and B, you want to provide a graduation path for your talent. So I don't know if you have anything to say on that from your experience on Sandman or other projects, but.
No, I mean, what you mean? What you enable us to do on one of the shows, or if I should talk about that, or yeah. So we Netflix was
that was a little bit of a dig.
Yeah, Netflix was super nice, and allowed us to be part of our experiment. That what happens when a show gets like unlimited render power. So we didn't have any cloud infrastructure or anything when they approached us, and they gave us this opportunity. So we couldn't, before that we couldn't scale and use the cloud for rendering on demand, because we really needed to invent and build our pipe to support it and stuff like that. So when they approached us, we were so happy. So we spent quite a long time building our infrastructure to support that, because we have our own render manager, and our render farm is in our own data center and stuff like that. And we wanted the experience for the artist to be totally seamless. So we just our cloud solution that we built it just exactly as our own infrastructure. So it's just an extension. So when that was done, we can just spin up more render nodes on demand inside our own render manager and stuff like that. And it was really cool. It gave really nice results for the artists. I mean, the feedback was amazing, and it really removed a lot of pressure from artists. They always knew that the rendering was going to be done the day after, and stuff like that. So it was. Really
I think the cool thing was, you got way more iterations compared to a vendor that didn't have access to cloud. And we're able to hit really high creative bars, 3-4 passes in, which, I think, I'm not going to say cloud contributed to the Emmy because the artist did, but the Emmy nomination, but that sequence got Emmy nominated, which is pretty awesome. So,
just rendering 4K earlier in the process of the shot, rendering with less noise. Sometimes we render every 10th frame or stuff like that, but now we can just render the whole shot, all frames. So we spot problems earlier. Rendering higher resolution means we can see if assets holds up close to camera earlier, and creative decisions just can be made earlier in the process.
Just for one clarity, that was your first show that you guys kind of said, okay, what happens if we render on cloud? Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. And then, James, do you want to add to that one, or is there?
I think just echoing a very, very similar experience. exactly what Jens was saying. Ability to get higher resolution, better quality out sooner, and iterate on it more. We had a similar experience ramping up cloud for a bunch of shows last year. Just let us hit those targets and get better work out.
Is that something you all? I mean, it sounds like you worked with ILP pretty early to make sure that it went well. Is that kind of? I mean, is that similar? It seems like that's the ingredient here. I thought I heard that mentioned a little too. It's just get early in the process to make sure that this is not a last-minute panic button you push.
Yeah, for sure. It's about having the option, in your toolbox as early as possible. And I think we were fortunate. Our planning and resourcing teams did a great job of forecasting the need. Quite a long way in advance, which doesn't always happen, So
That's good.
We had a good runway to sort of get ready, get prepared, build out the networking, build out the infrastructure we needed to be able to burst out.
I had a conversation a long time ago with somebody who kind of stewarded over 1,000 artists, and one of the most interesting quotes they said to me was, "If I save artists under 5 minutes a day, it saves me $1 million. I just don't know where the 5 minutes are." Do you all kind of have that sort of North Star too, of like, how do we make people, like the people under me, more efficient? And kind of, you were talking about there's more content than there are people. How do you make them swing kind of bigger with what they do, or at least more efficient with what they do? And where do you see sort of those opportunities, even if you don't have the full answer on it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to like getting the rudimentary tasks automated is critical. I don't know if this is necessarily going to answer that question, but having a network of other vendors that can support each other, an easier way to move media around, all those things can start to shave off time. Like, I think it's a thing of the past to start to, have to package up everything, outsource it to a vendor 5,000 miles away, wait for it to come back. More overlap of process and workflows, and I think RT Core and real time is going to really help a lot with that. But I have an analogy, if I could, or an example I could kind of bring to the. So with NetFX, NetFX is basically like a cloud-based visual effects platform on AWS, but it's also a network. Like, we've built a network of a ton of partners around the world, and we have called the bat signal. We shoot the bat signal up, and we're like, we've got this big project that comes in, right? I won't name names, but we've got a big Korean project that needed like 1,600 shots done in 8 weeks. Like, impossible. So how do you get that done? Well, the only way to get it done is to build a network of people and divide the work up and make sure that you're really hyper optimizing schedule, because the schedule's not going to change. You just have to figure out how to distribute it. You have to access the right people and make it work. And I don't know if we're going to hit the deadline or not, but we've got. We are, okay. So one of my team's like, we're going to hit it. Yes, we will hit it. But this new world where we're in a place where we can basically build a hybrid model and create a vendor comprised of other vendors to do something in a wild timeline with a high degree of complexity is super cool. And I think, if you can optimize your workforce, you want to optimize utilization of that workforce. Visual effects is super choppy. Like, you're working 70-hour weeks, and then the show delivers, and you've got a gap in holding time. And what we provide is the fill for that holding time. So if you're in between projects, you can host on the platform, tie everything together, and do stuff like that. And so we'll see how this works, but it's super cool. And we've got a VFX soup, a Korean VFX soup in the city in Vancouver, overseeing a Korean show in Seoul that's being done by 26 vendors in India and Montreal. And it's wild, like, to see that come together. And so I think process is part of time optimization, but also like filling the utilization holes between big projects is what we're hoping for in the future.
I love that perspective from like you're looking at the big picture with it, but I'm curious to hear sort of the medium and this, or not the large and the small kind of studio perspective on that too.
Yeah, I mean, like on the render side, I think it's trying to improve the quality of life for people, right? If you're not stressing about your render capacity, if you have that flexibility to have unlimited capacity, then it takes away a big chunk of stressing and optimizing and making that trade-off, right? Compute time versus expensive artist time. I think that's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think rendering is like the single most time-consuming and frustrating thing still for artists. So if you ask any artist what will make you produce shots faster, they will always say computer speed or something like that, like really fast file and storage, so you can read those frames really fast in Nuke or something like that, and just rendering, I would say. Tools and the AI stuff, it's really exciting, and it's going to automate more things, but I still think that raw compute is what's going to be the biggest thing for an artist to be able to work faster and produce more shots and stuff.
That makes sense. All right, so I want to shift gears here a little bit. We're going to do a quick lightning round. This is like 1 to 2 sentence answers, straight from the hip, like kind of what you're thinking with stuff. And then we're going to open up for Q&A to make sure that we have some good time for that. All right, so you were just talking about infinite compute, so this is the perfect one to lead with. If you had literally infinite amounts of compute with no costs attached, what would you try to build simulator to do for fun? Any of you, go. This is hairball brain. If you need a second, that's fine, but this is the lightning round.
What would we be like for the business or for personal gain?
This is just the fun. It is awesome.
Yeah, figure out how to just build a distributed blockchain and host all sorts of token minting for everything, right? I think that'd be fun. A long time ago, when I was at ImageWorks, I said, "Let's use this render farm for minting Bitcoin." They're like, "That's crazy." But yes, if I had unlimited compute, that's what I do.
I love it.
Yeah, I will still try to find where is the limit. It has to be somewhere. Somebody just throw everything at it. Just the biggest waterfall, the biggest water sim, the biggest smoke sim, everything, and just see.
Try to break it.
I want to see where the ceiling is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. Where's the limit? Yeah. Let's break it.
It's funny because there's this beautiful thing. I don't know how widespread it is. It's like Parkinson's law. People will take the time to fill whatever space they have, and you're like, oh yeah. Let's just do that. All right, so again, and this is purely just from you guys, what's one thing you wish was invented sooner for VFX?
PC over IP.
Wait, what was that? I'm sorry?
Teradici. Yeah, invented, maybe not, but if I'd known about it sooner, it's been a game changer. Amazing.
Love it.
Bringing game engine in earlier and turning software into platforms versus just single tools.
Yeah, I think real time, I would say also. Yeah, if we would be, 5 years into the future, I think a lot is going to be game engines actually. So maybe, yeah. So yeah, it would be nice to be already there now. So.
Love it. Okay, last one. If you could learn one new tool or skill today instantly, what would it be? Doesn't have to be
Spanish.
VFX related, but it can be. I'm sorry, what?
Spanish.
I like to learn how to woodwork.
Okay. I should have been more clear on tools, but that's okay.
Yes. No, I'd like to learn how to animate. I've played around with Maya, and it's super complicated. And there's definitely an art to it. So.
Yeah. I would also like to be good at animating and the drawing. That would be awesome.
All right, I'll wave my magic wand after this. Thanks to our panel for being able to do this today.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming.